Hello, public safety community. Jason Karp Esquire here at your service from the Public Safety Network, bringing you PSN NOD, news of the day, our nod to public safety. You give me 3 minutes, I'm going to blow your mind. So let's get to it. Let's start with blowing our minds with jetpacks. We all seen jetpacks, daredevils. We've fantasized about these as kids, at least some of us have, me included. Well, maybe closer to reality than we think. Richard Browning developed a jetpack suit back in 2017. They were, at the time, for entertainment daredevil purposes. Well, now officials are looking at potentially putting the suit to use for emergency medical response. That's right. Gravity Industries recently released a simulated video showing the suit being used in the Lake District in England, and it could be a first response in areas where either helicopters or otherwise auto vehicles can't be reached. So could be really exciting stuff. It says that you need to have some upper body strength, however, to hold on to the jetpack. And at a slim $438,000, probably not quite within public safety's budgets just yet, but keep your eye out for this. I'll tell you what, I'm going to volunteer. So jetpacks, be on the lookout. More technology. Drones in Florida now are being used in a North Collier County Fire District is using drones in order to help locate fires. They include infrared technology, and they're dispatched immediately ahead of the engine company. And once reached the scene, they of course, identify situational awareness, use infrared, and they can pinpoint exactly where the fire is, opposed to the guesswork that oftentimes comes when first arriving on scene. So again, you know me, I love drones, love technology, great use of technology here. This is an advanced drone. They say it costs about $5,000, but clearly is going to be able to create more efficiencies and save lives. What else is going on in technology or similar? Governor Newsom in California has signed a bill requiring gun ammunition manufacturers to include tracking on their ammunition to help police solve crimes. So the tracking would be a marking that indicates gun, make, model, serial number, so that when ammunition is recovered after an incident, it can be tracked back to the particular gun, potentially the particular purchaser. So we'll see how that falls out. That's been resisted, for, as you can imagine, by manufacturers for many, many years. It's been recently, legislation's recently been proposed by the governor, so we'll see where that turns out. Chicago, we've talked about, still a lot of information going on about defunding the police, or refunding the police, as I like to call it, reallocating funds. So the public health department there wants to create a crisis response team. We've talked about this before, which would exclude police. This would be social workers and paramedics, and they would respond exclusively to mental health calls and dispatch to these incidents. So that is being considered, has not been signed into law. It was proposed by community health advocates and several aldermen. So we'll see what happens. This is a trend across the country. We've seen this before. This is not necessarily a bad thing. As I've often said, I actually think police departments need more funding. There needs to be more funding for these social benefits that we're seeing here. Let's get the right resource to the right incident to maximize the outcome. So again, we'll keep our eyes out on Chicago. I want to spend a couple minutes on the next item, public safety. You have been done a disservice, unfortunately, recently this week by the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, which has now taken the 4.9 gigahertz spectrum, 50 megahertz of spectrum that since the early 2000s has been fully dedicated to public safety use has now been taken away by the FCC, and it is now being given to each of the various states for the states to determine how they want to use that spectrum, including for commercial use. So they could literally lease that spectrum to one statewide lessee who could use it completely for commercial use without regard necessarily to the impacts on public safety. Of course, it was a nod to ensuring that public safety incumbents are protected in terms of their use of the 4.9 gigahertz spectrum today, and there are several, I believe, 1,000 licensees who are using the 4.9 gigahertz spectrum across the country. But there are no rules and regulations regarding potential interference. There's no rules and regulations about public safety's entitlement to it. In fact, they're not entitled to it. If the states determine that they would rather make a buck by leasing the spectrum to commercial use, they can do that. It's completely up to them to manage this nationwide critical resource that has been dedicated to public safety now for almost 20 years. They did this because it's been underutilized. Only 2-3% of the spectrum is actually being used. But one of the primary reasons for that is the FCC's current regulatory regime makes it very difficult to use the spectrum on an efficient basis. That is, the equipment needed to operate in 4.9 is still pretty expensive because not a lot of manufacturers and technology providers have 4.9 gigahertz solutions for public safety. That's because there isn't a volume of users. You need a lot of people to want to use this spectrum in order for manufacturers to manufacture devices and do it cheaply. Well, that's been very difficult because of the FCC's regulatory structure, which has limited it to localities on a very locality and agency basis, the licenses. So public safety has advocated significantly to solve this problem by managing the spectrum on a nationwide basis and getting economies of scale, not unlike what was done with Band 14 and FirstNet. Unfortunately, on a 3-2 decision, Chairman Pai and the Republican majority of the commission voted to take that spectrum away from public safety and give it to the states. I having lived through FirstNet, having gone through this exact analysis of how to maximize and optimize spectrum, how to use it, protect it for public safety, this is a bad decision. It is a terrible decision, and I can tell you that certainly the public safety community is mobilizing to challenge it. We hope that it gets challenged, stayed, and overturned eventually, but here's a plea. Reach out to the Public Safety Spectrum Alliance, PSSA, or your respective public safety discipline agency and make your desires known that you want to keep the spectrum for public safety's future. It is critical. Public safety communications are critical and only becoming more critical in current times. So spend a little extra time on that, but this is a really, really important issue, even though it sounds maybe a little bit esoteric for those who aren't familiar with it. Go out, advocate, let the PSSA know, join the petitions, and help support the effort to take the spectrum back for public safety. And finally, on a very somber note, a good friend and colleague, Mr. Tom Bilotta, who was the CEO of Assured Wireless Corporation, very unexpectedly passed away last week, and we are very, very sad about his passing. Assured Wireless Corporation, some of you may know, has developed what's called high-powered user equipment, or HPUE. This is the equipment that allows users or equipment to transmit at 6 times the power of a normal cell phone, which extends cellular coverage up to 3 times the normal cellular coverage. And they've been working with AT&T and others to deploy this technology, which should be available in the marketplace later in 2021. The team is visibly shaken by this. I know that I personally am. This is a huge loss for our industry, for the community, and personally. And I just want to send warmest wishes to Tom's family and to the folks at Assured Wireless Corporation for this loss. He will be sorely, sorely missed. There will be information about services and other recognition through the AWC website. So on that note, Thank you for joining me today. That is the news of the day here on the Public Safety Network. I want to thank you for tuning in. Go get 4.9 back. Go have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. I'm out of here. Bye.